I will start with my presentation. So, hi everyone. As Gentin said, I'm Sergey. I'm working at L2BEAT. This is a team within Ethereum ecosystem. We do dashboards. And today I will be speaking about our newest dashboard about privacy protocols on Ethereum. So this is roughly how it looks. This is a screenshot. This is already live. You can go check it out on our website. This is still a bit exploration stage, but our idea is to look into these privacy protocols of like Tornado Cache, Railgun privacy pools, and others. See what we can, how we can look at them, and maybe start ecosystem-wide discussion on these protocols. Something I already want to mention: there already is a dashboard of these privacy protocols maintained by a team within the Ethereum Foundation. They're quite good. They have very detailed descriptions of these protocols, but I think we still have something to contribute. And at L2BEAT in general, we always take the perspective of a user who is a bit paranoid, and they are not trusting anybody or anything, and they just trust Ethereum blockchain. And then they try to evaluate some risks of doing some actions. And today, the action will be, how do I move tokens privately? So what are the associated risks? And this will be a bit specific to Ethereum blockchain. But the motivation is that basically all the transactions on blockchain are transparent. You can see everything. So today I will try to explain how you should think about this question if you are a paranoid user, and how you can use our dashboard to make better decisions guided by the dashboard. So I will start with quickly explaining these 3 projects that we have. Then I will just show some things that we already have on our dashboard. And then I will mention a couple of things that we also are considering that are not yet on the dashboard, and we still think about how to talk about them best. So let's start with the projects. Just quickly telling you what they are. So first is Tornado Cache. This is maybe the oldest mixer on Ethereum and definitely the most popular. So how does it work? Is imagine your Alice here. You have to pick a particular token and a denomination of a token. Let's say 0.1 ETH. And then you can deposit this token into a pool. So this is a smart contract on Ethereum. And you get a node that proves your deposit. And later you can come with this node and withdraw to a different address. And as you can see by the picture, Alice there has sunglasses, so you cannot actually tell that her address on the right-hand side is in any way connected to her address on the left-hand side. So this is how Tornado Cache works. You basically have these pools of different tokens and denominations. The next protocol is Railgun. It's a bit different that you can deposit different tokens, also NFTs and ERC20 tokens, and the amounts are arbitrary. And it has additional features that you can transact within the shielded pool of Railgun. So basically, you again, as a user on the left, you can deposit and then privately withdraw to a different address. But then you can also take your deposited private tokens and send them to an address of Alice, for example, within Railgun. And this transfer will be private and will not be known to anybody. And you can even interact with some contracts outside of Railgun, like DeFi. You can make a swap by unshielding and then shielding your tokens. And the final one is privacy pools. So we currently have the version 1 of privacy pools. They're a bit similar to Tornado Cache, but the key feature is compliance. So they review all the deposits coming into their privacy pools, and they whitelist only whitelist the deposits that they can go through. So you cannot deposit dirty tokens in the protocol. This is the idea. And now they're working on a V2 that will be closer to Railgun by functionality. So a bit small note here on relayers. all of the projects that I mentioned have this workflow where you basically take your tokens, deposit from one address, and then you can later withdraw them to a fresh, newly created address that has no history. But this has a problem that if you have this new fresh address, it doesn't have any tokens to pay for transaction. So you cannot send a withdrawal transaction from this address. So this is a bit simplistic diagram that doesn't work. And what does work, and all of these projects basically have this, is you have an intermediary called a relayer that you can see with a top hat there on the right. And they take basically your node and they withdraw it for you to your address. And these relayers are essential for the actual practical privacy of using these protocols. So this is not a part of the on-chain protocol, but it's an important part of the whole thing, nevertheless. So let me show you some basic metrics of these protocols that we have on the dashboard. This is the total value locked. So it's quite interesting here. You can see almost this order of magnitude distribution of tokens locked in different protocols. Tornado Cash is the biggest. Basically, because you have the privacy kind of accumulating, the more people are using some protocol, the better privacy is. This gives you this distribution, I think. Next, the number of transactions. It's still very, very small. So these are the numbers of deposits and withdrawals, and this is less than 0.01% of all transactions. So it's still not practically used at scale. There are also some charts you can see for some protocols. For example, here for Tornado Cash, you can see this weird spike of 400 million US dollars somebody put through Tornado Cash. Interesting stuff you can see from the charts for privacy pools. They seem to be gaining quite some momentum recently, probably because of the upcoming V2 release. So for Railgun, the numbers look quite strong and organic, I would say. The next metric I would like to talk are anonymity sets. This is basically the number of deposits and withdrawals from your protocol. It could be defined in different ways. So we say on the website that anonymity set is all users with which you can plausibly mix a particular withdrawal. So when you withdraw, how many users could that have been? And this depends, of course, on the number of users, but it also depends on some other factors. For example, it depends on the amount. If you withdraw from a privacy protocol, let's say $10 million, but there were only 3 deposits of that amount, then your anonymity set is effectively 3. Also tokens. In fact, if you withdraw some weird ducky token that I found on Railgun, for example, somebody actually deposited it. So if you withdraw this ducky token, but there were maybe only 5 deposits of this token ever, then it's also not big surprise who you might be. Maybe a bit more contested is timing, for example. So if you withdraw 1 ETH that you held maybe just for 1 week within Tornado Cash, but then in the last 1 year there were only 10 deposits and withdrawals, then maybe it's also reasonable to assume that you were one of these recent users of the protocol. So these are the different considerations that you have to keep in mind when you try to evaluate how actually anonymous you are when you're using these protocols. Here are some actual numbers for the protocols. So for Tornado Cash, you can see it's broken down by different assets. But for ETH, for example, there are quite some deposits in the last week, in the last 30 days in total. Actually, for Tornado Cash, you have to break it down also by bucket, as I said. So there are the amounts. And here you can also see all this on our dashboard. Interestingly enough, people use 1 and 10 ETH buckets more than 0.1 ETH. But you can also see all these numbers, for example, when you are making a decision how to best anonymize your tokens. You can use this information. Railgun has the privacy pools has very small privacy numbers. So they have 48 ETH deposits in a week. And in total, it's maybe 4,000. So it's not a big anonymity set. and for other tokens it's almost zero. And also for the amounts, you can see, for example, if you go to this 100K to 1 million range of deposits, then you're not getting a lot of privacy out of privacy pools, because there are only 48 deposits in that range. For Railgun, the numbers are a bit better, and also because of the swaps within with other DeFi protocols, the anonymity set is a bit bigger, because you could also transfer tokens within Railgun and you could move them out. But yeah, the numbers are still not as impressive as for Tornado Cash. And again, if you have these bigger amounts, then you have to be very mindful about how you mix the tokens. So there are some on-chain risks that I maybe will skip. You can check out on the website what the DAO can do, multi-sig can do. Maybe a small note I still want to say here is about Tornado Cash. So Tornado Cash smart contracts are permissionless. Nobody can upgrade them. Nobody can stop your withdrawals and deposits. But there is a Tornado Cash DAO, which is governed by a token. They cannot, as I said, they cannot change the contracts. But what they can do is they can do some periphery upgrades. For example, they can change the official front end of Tornado Cash, and then this was exploited actually in 2024 when a malicious front end was deployed, and this was stealing basically your privacy, and maybe even it was stealing your tokens. But it tells you that even if the smart contracts are not modifiable, there are still other vectors of attack. So yeah, you can go check out our website. It has some more features, like the smart contracts of all the protocols and so on. But here in the second section of my talk, I would like to discuss some other questions that we're thinking about and I think are important for these on-chain privacy protocols. So something you also want to do is add some more protocols to have a look at. So now there are only 3, but there are more interesting ones out there also coming up very recently. So there were some releases from Optimism Starknet teams in the last months. Very interesting. There are also other blockchains that offer this privacy, which could be interesting to look at. Then we also realized, looking at the Tornado Cash, for example, that there are other privacy risks that are not fully on-chain. For example, this malicious frontend could be an example. We have written a more holistic guide trying to evaluate or discuss risks of using these protocols that go beyond these anonymity sets and smart contracts. But maybe a couple of examples to keep it visual. For example, you have wallet risks. If you could imagine that you have your private address and public address, and you add them both in your MetaMask, and they are next to one another. And so then when you open your wallet browser extension, it makes a request to MetaMask to fetch balances for 2 of your addresses, and then MetaMask immediately sees that these 2 addresses are connected, and even though you are getting your privacy from blockchain, MetaMask can actually know that this was you. Another example would be RPC and IP leaks. So for example, you're making a Tornado Cash deposit from your IP, and then later you're making a Tornado Cash withdrawals again from your IP, and your transactions going through the same RPC provider. And the RPC provider can make a recording of the IP and actually connect your deposit to your withdrawal. So even though nothing on-chain was breaking your privacy, but now the RPC provider like Alchemy or Nefura can know that this was you. So you can see this is a very deep topic, and it all basically depends on how paranoid you are and what are your assumptions, but this is also something that we think users should keep in mind. Next big topic that we looked at is institutional privacy. So I don't know if here in Berlin at this cypherpunk location is the best to speak about this, but I think it's still important. This is a part of this push of blockchains to get some institutional capital. And it's basically completely different from the cypherpunk privacy of Tornado Cash privacy pools that I was talking about. It's closer to Web 2 privacy, when maybe you have this institution that wants to be running some privacy domain in which they can see everything that's going on, but the users should not be able to see the actions of one another. So we have summed it up in an article about freedoms and canton, but in general it's not clear to us whether this is a different type of privacy or not, and whether it could be considered together with Tornado Cash and so on. And maybe my last point, which could be also a bit spicy, is about compliance. So compliance means some measures and to track and regulate, let's say, some bad actors in the protocol. This could mean many different things. But for example, recently there was a KelpDAO layer 0 hack, where on Ethereum ecosystem, where hackers stole more than 200 million worth of funds, and Arbitrum Security Council made a decision to basically steal 1/3 of the stolen money back from the hacker by, let's say, an executive decision. And this is an example of compliance as well. So I would argue that unconditional privacy without any compliance has some issues. So if you're thinking about Tornado Cash, maybe you don't want to be mixing your funds with some bad users like hackers, or North Koreans are not very popular in the Ethereum ecosystem. But you might also be a company that's generally worried about some people knocking down your door, like Tornado Cash developers might have been worrying about this. So my hot take is that we definitely do need some uncompliant protocols like Tornado Cash and so on, where you can just use them and mix tokens. But we also need some more compliant solutions. There seems to be demand for them, and there are different ways of doing this compliance. So maybe to describe what's going on with the protocols I mentioned, for Tornado Cash there is no compliance, but if you are legally required, you can prove that your Tornado Cash withdrawal didn't come from some bad deposits. It's possible to do. On Railgun, it's also not required by protocol, but these relayers that in de facto submit your withdrawal transactions will not accept them if you don't provide a proof that you are not connected with any of bad deposits. But you can then try to find another relayer. This could work. And in privacy pools, there is this build compliance feature where basically the privacy pools team, or they also were mentioned Chainalysis, but I don't think that Chainalysis is actually doing this, whitelists all the deposits and says, hey, this deposit is okay, this deposit is okay, this deposit is not okay. And then you can use privacy only if your deposit was whitelisted. We also made an attempt to evaluate different types of compliance, different approaches, and there are some ideas that we think are a bit better from the user perspective, and some ideas that are a bit worse from the user perspective. So here is just a suggestion that how I think about this. For example, maybe no compliance is good for user because they don't lose any privacy. But also, if you can upfront prove that your funds are not coming from a bad place, or if you just can prove that your funds are coming from a good place, then you're let in to use the privacy. So maybe this is also quite good, because you can make a decision upfront and you can know upfront whether you can use the protocol or not. Another solution here that I say is okay is implemented by Privacy Boost on Optimism. And they have this idea where there is an admin viewing key that can see through and can decode all the private transactions of all the users. But every time that they do this, there is on-chain attestation happening. So basically, whenever, because it runs in a TEE, so basically, whenever an authority or regulator sees your transactions, you will know about this. And it's not so nice that they can do this and can retroactively de-anonymize you and see what you have been doing. But maybe it's nice that you at least know about this. And there is also There's solution from Starknet, where they also have this admin viewing key that can see all your transactions, but then you don't even know if it was used or not. So this we call BEAT compliance, and for example, some projects also require full KYC before you can access the privacy. So yeah, this was actually all I wanted to say. Go check out our dashboard. It's live. If you have any ideas about compliance, off-chain security, or institutional privacy, also feel free to reach out. We're thinking about this, and yeah, I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Hi. So what does Kohaku add to this? And second question related is, are there any good wallets for using this?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I don't think there are any good wallets for using this now. So if you want to use privacy pools, so for Railgun there are good wallet ecosystem. There are several that you can use. For privacy pools and Tornado Cash, you basically have to use the UI website, which is a bit risky for Tornado Cash, but also it's a different or it's a fragmented user experience. And Kohaku is a great initiative within the EF to create an SDK and eventually a wallet that can natively work with at least these three protocols and some others. I think it will greatly improve the situation on several fronts. So one is this here off-chain privacy risks. If you have a wallet that is implemented well, so for example, it makes careful RPC requests without leaking your data, or it maybe can work together with some other VPNs and some other mixnets to hide your traffic. This takes out a lot of risks on that side. But maybe I would say the most impactful feature of having a nice wallet would be just this, the number of transactions, the anonymity set. So if it's easy to use and if users have a simple way of using this, I'm hoping that the number of transactions will be much, much higher, and then you will be mixing with much more people, and it will give much better anonymity sets to everybody.
Talk very close to the mic.
Yeah, in your last slide, you contrasted whitelisting versus full KYC. Can you elaborate on the difference? How do you get whitelisted if not through full KYC?
Yeah, so here in the whitelisting for privacy pools, basically they have an entity that analyzes the transaction and says whether a particular transaction is okay or not. So maybe they, in real time, they monitor all the hacks and they maybe know the wallets of some hackers and so on. So at the moment when you deposit, they have a look at a particular transaction and say this transaction is not connected to any of the hacks, it's fine. Or they say this transaction is from a hack that happened 3 minutes ago, so we will not let it through. And KYC here means submitting actually information about yourself, like your passport, for example, or biometrical data, and only then you can access the protocol. So this is going more a bit in the direction of institutional compliance, but yeah, here KYC means giving your personal information.